The sun was setting over the sleepy town of Birmingham, Alabama. A golden haze bathed the horizon as 16-year-old Marcus Green walked home from his part-time job at the local diner. Life in Marcus's world wasn't easy, but he knew how to hustle, how to smile even when the world seemed too heavy. His sneakers were worn, his backpack frayed at the edges, but his spirit remained unbreakable. He turned the corner onto a quiet road where trees lined the street, their branches swaying gently in the summer breeze. That's when he noticed it, a sleek black Mercedes-Benz parked awkwardly by the side of the road. Its front tire was completely flat, and standing beside it was a tall man in a sharp gray suit. He looked out of place in the dusty surroundings, like he belonged on Wall Street, not a backstreet in Alabama. Marcus hesitated. He could have just kept walking, after all, this wasn't his problem. But something about the way the man struggled with his phone, clearly frustrated, made Marcus stop. "Need some help, mister?" Marcus called out, walking toward him. The man turned, startled at first, then relieved. "You have no idea how much I do. My phone's dead, and I have no clue how to change a tire." Marcus grinned. "Lucky for you, I've changed plenty." He dropped his backpack on the ground and got to work. The man watched in amazement as Marcus moved with ease, loosening the lug nuts and switching out the flat tire for the spare. Sweat beaded on the boy's forehead, but he didn't complain once. 15 minutes later, the job was done. "All set." Marcus dusted off his hands and stood up. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. "Here, take this. You've earned it." But Marcus shook his head. "I can't take your money. I'm just glad I could help." The man raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus." "Marcus Green." "Well, Marcus Green, I'm David Whitmore. And I owe you more than $100 for your kindness. Tell me, what's your dream? What do you want to do with your life?" Marcus paused, caught off guard by the question. No one had ever asked him that before. "I want to be an architect," he admitted. "I love building things, drawing designs. But college is expensive, so I'm saving up while working at the diner." David nodded thoughtfully. "You're a smart, hard-working young man. Let's stay in touch. You never know where life might take you." He handed Marcus a business card. The turn of fate. A week passed, and Marcus almost forgot about the encounter until his phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. "Hello? Marcus, it's David Whitmore. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I want to help. Would you like to come to New York City for a summer internship at my firm? We're one of the top architecture firms in the country. All expenses paid, of course." Marcus nearly dropped the phone. "Are you serious?" "As serious as that flat tire," David said with a chuckle. Marcus couldn't believe it. 3 weeks later, he was on a plane to New York City, his heart pounding with excitement and nerves. The city was a whirlwind of towering skyscrapers, yellow cabs, and endless possibilities. A life transformed. The internship was more than Marcus had ever imagined. He worked alongside some of the brightest minds in architecture, learning everything from design software to project management. He soaked it all up like a sponge, his passion growing with each passing day. David became a mentor, guiding him not just in architecture but in life. By the end of the summer, David called Marcus into his office. "Marcus," he said, "you've got talent and determination. I see a bright future for you. How would you like a full scholarship to the School of Architecture at Columbia University? I'll cover your tuition, room, and board. All you need to do is keep working hard." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much. David smiled. Just promise me one thing, when you're in a position to help someone, pay it forward. The ripple effect. Marcus kept his promise. For years later, he graduated at the top of his class and began his career as an architect. His designs became known for their innovative style and social impact, creating affordable housing in underserved communities. One day, as he walked out of his office, he saw a young boy struggling with a bicycle chain on the sidewalk. He smiled, remembering how his own life had changed with a simple act of kindness. Need some help, kid? The boy looked up, surprised, and nodded. And so the cycle continued, the power of a small act of kindness creating ripples that reached far beyond that fateful evening in Birmingham. A new chapter begins. Marcus crouched beside the boy, his hands steady and patient as he worked to untangle the twisted bicycle chain. The boy couldn't have been more than 10 years old, with a wide-eyed look of curiosity and a nervous shuffle. His clothes were a little worn, but his energy reminded Marcus of himself at that age, full of dreams but unsure how to chase them. There you go, Marcus said, snapping the chain back into place. Good as new. The boy's face lit up. Thanks, mister. Marcus smiled. What's your name? Jamal. Well, Jamal, you've got a strong bike. Make sure you take care of it. Jamal nodded, then hesitated. Are you somebody famous? I've seen your picture in that big building down the street. Marcus laughed. Not exactly famous, but I work in that building. I'm an architect. What's an architect? Jamal asked, tilting his head. Marcus thought for a moment. An architect is someone who designs buildings, schools, homes, parks, places where people can live, work, and dream. One day, if you want, you can become one too. Jamal's eyes widened. Really? Really? If you ever need someone to show you how, come find me. I'll help you. With a wave, Jamal rode off, his bike chain spinning smoothly once again. Marcus stood there for a moment, watching him disappear around the corner, thinking back to the day he helped David Whitmore on that lonely Alabama road. The next big thing. Marcus returned to his office, his mind racing. Over the years, he'd worked on dozens of projects, community centers, apartment complexes, and green spaces that brought new life to struggling neighborhoods. But something inside him whispered that it wasn't enough. He needed to do more. The next day, he called a meeting with his team. I have an idea, Marcus began, leaning on the conference table. What if we start a mentorship program for kids from underserved communities? Not just teaching them architecture, but exposing them to engineering, design, and urban planning. Give them a chance to dream bigger than they've ever imagined. His team exchanged glances, excitement building in the room. We'll call it the Future Builders Initiative, Marcus continued. We'll partner with schools, offer summer programs, and bring the kids into our world. And we won't just teach them, we'll inspire them. The idea took off like wildfire. Within months, the Future Builders Initiative was launched. Dozens of young students from neighborhoods like the one Marcus had grown up and joined the program, learning from architects, engineers, and designers. They visited construction sites, sketched their own blueprints, and even presented their projects at City Hall. Full circle. One evening, Marcus was reviewing plans for a new community center when his assistant knocked on the door. There's someone here to see you, she said with a smile. He says it's urgent. Marcus looked up, curious. Standing in the doorway was a tall man in his 20s, his face vaguely familiar. Mr. Green, the man said, stepping forward. You probably don't remember me, but I'm Jamal. You helped me with my bike 10 years ago. Marcus blinked in surprise. Jamal? Is that really you? Jamal grinned. Yeah. I just graduated with a degree in civil engineering. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you and the Future Builders Initiative. You told me I could be an architect or engineer one day, and I believed you. Now I'm here to say thank you, and to ask if you have any job openings. Marcus laughed and stood, extending his hand. Jamal, you've got perfect timing. Welcome to the team. The legacy lives on. As Marcus sat back down, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His journey had come full circle, from a quiet road in Alabama to a skyscraper in New York City, and now back to helping the next generation find their way. Kindness, he realized, was like an echo. It started as a small sound but grew louder with every act that followed, traveling farther than anyone could imagine. And Marcus knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. Storm on the horizon. The Future Builders Initiative was thriving, but with every success, new challenges emerged. As the program grew in popularity, it caught the attention of powerful developers in the city, men who saw Marcus's mission as a threat to their bottom line. One of these men was Richard Carlisle, the CEO of Carlisle Developments, a real estate giant known for prioritizing profit over people. Carlisle was a man who didn't like competition. He had long eyed the very neighborhoods Marcus was revitalizing, seeing them as prime real estate for luxury condominiums and high-end retail spaces. What Marcus called community progress, Carlisle called lost opportunity. One morning, Marcus's assistant burst into his office, her face pale. Marcus, you need to see this. She handed him a thick envelope. Inside were legal documents. Carlisle Developments had filed a lawsuit, claiming that one of the lots Marcus was building on had been improperly acquired. If Carlisle won, the Future Builders Initiative would be forced to shut down its flagship project, a state-of-the-art youth center in the heart of Marcus's old neighborhood. Marcus's heart sank. The youth center wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of hope, a place where dreams were being built brick by brick. He couldn't let it be taken away. The fight begins. Determined to protect what he had built, Marcus assembled a team of lawyers, community leaders, and supporters. They worked tirelessly, poring over contracts and city records, looking for a way to fight back. But Carlisle was relentless. He flooded the media with stories questioning Marcus's intentions, painting him as an inexperienced do-gooder who was out of his depth. The pressure was immense. Donations to the initiative began to dry up, and the board of directors grew nervous. One evening, David Whitmore called Marcus. Marcus, he said, his voice calm but serious, you're in a tough spot. Carlisle plays dirty, and he's got deep pockets. You can walk away from this. Focus on your career, on the next project. No one would blame you. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he took a deep breath. David, you once told me to pay it forward. These kids, they're counting on me. I can't walk away. David chuckled softly. I was hoping you'd say that. Let me make a few calls. A community rises. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Hundreds of people showed up outside Marcus's office, parents, students, teachers, and neighbors, all holding signs that read, "Save the Future Builders Initiative." Local news stations covered the protest, and soon the story spread nationwide. Social media lit up with messages of support. Former students shared how the program had changed their lives. Architects and engineers from across the country offered to help. Even more surprising, an anonymous donor pledged $1 million to the initiative's legal defense fund. When Carlyle saw the overwhelming public support, he realized his battle was unwinnable. Rather than risk a further hit to his reputation, he quietly dropped the lawsuit. Victory and growth. With the lawsuit behind them, the Future Builders initiative flourished like never before. Marcus completed the youth center, turning it into a beacon for the community, a place where young people could dream without limits. Carlyle's defeat only strengthened Marcus's resolve. He expanded the program to other cities, partnering with schools and community organizations from Los Angeles to Chicago. His story became an inspiration, a reminder that one act of kindness could change the world. An unexpected twist. Years later, at a gala honoring leaders in architecture and philanthropy, Marcus stood on the stage, accepting an award for his contributions to the community. As the applause died down, he looked into the audience and spotted a familiar face, Jamal, now a senior project manager at Marcus's firm, sitting proudly in the front row. Beside him sat David Whitmore, who gave Marcus a knowing smile. Marcus cleared his throat, his voice steady and full of emotion. "I was once just a kid with a dream and no way to make it happen. But I learned that every journey starts with someone willing to lend a hand. This award isn't just for me, it's for everyone who believed in the power of community and the idea that we rise by lifting others. And to every young dreamer out there, I was once where you are. If I made it, so can you." The room erupted in applause, but Marcus's mind drifted back to that quiet road in Birmingham, the flat tire, the stranger in a suit, and the chain of events that changed his life forever. He had learned one simple truth: kindness always comes back full circle. And this, he knew, was only the beginning of something even greater. A new alliance. As the applause faded and the gala wrapped up, Marcus made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging warm smiles. Just as he reached the exit, he felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Richard Carlyle. Marcus froze for a second, surprised to see the man who had once tried to destroy everything he built. Carlyle wasn't wearing his usual smug expression. He looked different, older, tired, almost humbled. "Marcus," Carlyle said, extending a hand. "Can we talk?" Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Sure." They stepped into a quiet corner of the hall. Carlyle cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. "Look, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from," he began. "I made mistakes, big ones. I let greed blind me, and I almost ruined something truly good. But seeing what you've done, how you've changed lives, it made me realize I've been on the wrong path for a long time." Marcus raised an eyebrow, curious where this was going. Carlyle continued. "I'm retiring soon. I want to make things right before I go. I've got properties in communities that need help, places I once saw as profit machines. But maybe they can be something more. I'd like to donate some of that land to the Future Builders initiative. You'll know what to do with it better than I ever could." Marcus crossed his arms. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Carlyle said with a small smile. "Just a man trying to fix his mistakes. An unlikely partnership." Though skeptical at first, Marcus agreed to work with Carlyle. True to his word, Carlyle donated several properties in struggling neighborhoods across the country. With Marcus's vision and experience, these lots were transformed into affordable housing, parks, and educational centers. It wasn't long before word of their partnership spread. Some questioned Marcus's decision to work with a former rival, but he always responded the same way. "Everyone deserves a chance to change." And Carlyle did change. He became one of the biggest advocates for the initiative, using his resources and connections to expand its reach even further. Jamal's rising star. Meanwhile, Jamal was quickly making a name for himself. His innovative designs caught the attention of major firms, but he chose to stay with Marcus's company, driven by the same mission, to build for the people who needed it most. One day, Marcus called Jamal into his office. "Jamal, it's time," Marcus said with a proud smile. "Time for what?" "For you to lead your own project." He handed Jamal a folder filled with blueprints and documents. "This one's yours. It's a youth center in Los Angeles. Take it, make it your own." Jamal's eyes lit up. "You really mean it?" "I do. I trust you." Over the next year, Jamal poured his heart and soul into the project, designing a cutting-edge facility that combined education, technology, and community spaces. When the center opened, it was hailed as a model for urban development, and Jamal became a rising star in the architecture world. The next generation. As the years passed, Marcus stepped back from day-to-day operations, focusing on mentoring the next generation of architects and leaders. He watched with pride as students from the Future Builders Initiative grew into accomplished professionals, architects, engineers, city planners, all committed to building a better world. At the grand opening of yet another youth center, Marcus stood beside Jamal, surrounded by hundreds of children and families. He thought about how far they had come, how every step of the journey had been built on kindness, resilience, and second chances. Jamal leaned over, smiling. "You started all this, you know. None of us would be here without you." Marcus chuckled. "I didn't start it. A flat tire did." Full circle. A young boy approached Marcus, holding a sketchbook. "Mr. Green, can I show you something?" "Of course," Marcus said, kneeling down to look at the boy's drawing. It was a sketch of a futuristic building, complete with solar panels and rooftop gardens. "This is amazing," Marcus said, genuinely impressed. "You've got talent, kid. What's your name?" "Tyrell," the boy said shyly. "I want to be an architect like you someday." Marcus smiled. "You will be, Tyrell. And when that day comes, you'll do things I can't even imagine. Keep dreaming, keep building, and never stop believing in yourself." As Tyrell ran off, Marcus felt a familiar warmth in his chest. He knew the future was in good hands. The cycle of kindness, opportunity, and transformation was still turning, stronger than ever. And this time, it was unstoppable. A new dream is born. The sun was setting over the city, casting a golden glow on the newly built youth center in Los Angeles. Tyrell sat on the steps outside, clutching his sketchbook. His mind buzzed with ideas: tall buildings with curved glass walls, parks that floated above city streets, and homes that could power themselves with clean energy. Jamal walked up beside him, noticing the boy's deep concentration. "What's on your mind, Tyrell?" Jamal asked with a warm smile. Tyrell looked up, a bit hesitant. "I was thinking, what if there was a building that could change shape depending on the weather? Like, when it rains, the roof would spread out like an umbrella. And in the summer, it would open up to let the breeze in." Jamal raised his eyebrows, impressed. "That's some next-level thinking. You know, ideas like that are what push architecture forward. You've got a gift, Tyrell. Don't be afraid to dream big." The first challenge. Over the next few months, Tyrell became a regular at the youth center. He attended every workshop and design class, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Jamal took him under his wing, helping him refine his sketches and teaching him the basics of architectural design. But not everyone believed in Tyrell's potential. At school, some of his classmates teased him for carrying around his sketchbook everywhere he went. "Why do you care about buildings?" one boy sneered. "It's not like you're gonna build one." Tyrell clenched his fists, but he didn't respond. He went home that night and stared at his sketchbook, wondering if they were right. The next day, he told Jamal he wasn't sure if architecture was for him. "Maybe I'm just wasting my time," Tyrell said, his voice barely a whisper. Jamal knelt down so they were eye to eye. "Listen to me, Tyrell. I used to feel the same way. People told me I couldn't do it. But you know what I learned? Their doubts don't matter. What matters is what you believe. If you want to build something great, you can. You've already got what it takes, you just have to keep going." Tyrell nodded, the spark returning to his eyes. A breakthrough. The following week, a design competition was announced at the youth center. The challenge was simple: design a building that could help solve a real-world problem. The winner's design would be turned into a scale model and displayed at City Hall. Tyrell knew exactly what he wanted to create. He spent every spare moment working on his design, a community center that collected and purified rainwater, with a flexible roof that could expand or contract based on the weather, just like he'd imagined. The day of the competition arrived, and Tyrell stood nervously in front of the judges, his sketch trembling slightly in his hands. "This is my idea," he began. "It's a building that adapts to its environment. When it rains, the roof opens to collect water and store it for later. And in the summer, it turns into a shade structure to keep people cool. It's a place for the whole community to gather, no matter what the weather is like." When he finished, there was a long pause. Tyrell held his breath. Then the lead judge smiled. "Tyrell, that's brilliant." The room erupted into applause. Tyrell couldn't believe it, he had won. A new generation of builders. The victory changed everything for Tyrell. His design was displayed at City Hall, and local architects praised his creativity and vision. Soon, he was invited to join an advanced design program for young innovators, where he met other kids who shared his passion for architecture and problem-solving. Marcus watched proudly from afar as Tyrell's confidence grew. He saw the same spark in Tyrell that he had once seen in Jamal and in himself. Years later, Tyrell would go on to study architecture at one of the country's top universities. He returned to his neighborhood as a leader, determined to give back just as Jamal and Marcus had done for him. A legacy that lives on. One afternoon, Tyrell stood in front of a newly completed building, a real-life version of the adaptable community center he had once sketched in his notebook. Children played in the courtyard, and neighbors gathered under the shade of the retractable roof. Jamal and Marcus stood beside him, beaming with pride. "You did it," Jamal said, clapping Tyrell on the shoulder. Tyrell grinned. "I had the best mentors." As the sun set behind them, Marcus reflected on how far the journey had taken him, from that flat tire on a lonely road to this moment, watching the next generation take the lead. Kindness had started it all. And now, the future was in good hands. A final test. For the next few years, Tyrell continued to rise, his reputation as a visionary young architect growing with each project. His adaptable community center design earned national recognition, and soon he was being invited to collaborate on ambitious projects across the country. But with success came new challenges. One day, Tyrell received a call from a prominent developer offering him a lucrative contract to design a luxury residential tower downtown. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect opportunity: prestige, a massive budget, and a chance to solidify his name in the industry. There was just one problem. The tower's construction would require demolishing an old neighborhood, a place filled with working-class families, local shops, and cultural history. It was the kind of community Marcus had always fought to protect. Tyrell sat in his office, staring at the proposal. He knew accepting the deal would take his career to new heights, but at what cost? He thought back to everything Jamal and Marcus had taught him. It's not just about building structures, it's about building futures. Tyrell picked up the phone and called Marcus. "What should I do?" Tyrell asked. "This could be huge for me, but it feels wrong." Marcus's voice was steady. "Only you can make that decision, Tyrell. But remember, the choices you make define who you are. Think about why you started. Think about the people who believed in you. Whatever you decide, make sure it's something you'll be proud of when you look back." A bold move. The next morning, Tyrell walked into the developer's office. The executive leaned back in his chair, expecting a handshake and a signed contract. Instead, Tyrell placed the proposal on the desk. "I can't accept this," Tyrell said, his voice firm. "I won't be part of something that displaces families and destroys a community. But I have an alternative." The executive raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." Tyrell pulled out a new set of blueprints. "This is a mixed-use project that preserves the neighborhood while adding new affordable housing, green spaces, and community facilities. It'll take more time and effort, but it's the right thing to do. And in the long run, it'll make the city stronger." The executive was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Let's do it your way." The legacy lives on. The project became a massive success, proving that progress didn't have to come at the expense of people. Tyrell's design was hailed as a model for sustainable urban development, and his decision to prioritize the community over profit became a defining moment in his career. At the grand opening of the new development, Tyrell stood on the same stage where Marcus had once given his famous speech. Jamal and Marcus were there, watching with pride. Tyrell took the microphone, looking out at the crowd, a mix of neighbors, friends, and young dreamers just like he had once been. "I've learned that being an architect isn't just about creating buildings. It's about creating hope, opportunity, and a better future for everyone. I didn't get here alone. I had mentors who believed in me, who showed me what's possible when we work together. And now it's my turn to pass it on. To every kid out there who thinks their dreams are too big, you belong here. You can do this. Keep drawing. Keep building. And most importantly, keep believing." A full circle ending. As the crowd cheered, Marcus couldn't help but smile. He knew the torch had truly been passed. The journey that had started with a flat tire, a stranger on a lonely road, and a simple act of kindness had grown into something far greater, a movement that would continue long after they were gone. It was proof that a single moment could change everything, and that the future was always waiting to be built, one dream at a time.